He was the lanky kid who almost quit after a growth spurt left him uncoordinated. Passed over 3 times before finally going 258th overall. But that so-called Mr. Irrelevant became the NHL's Vezina winner.
And the Vezina trophy goes to Pekka Rinne.
This is Pekka Rinne's rise from overlooked to unstoppable. In professional sports, there's a nickname given to the very last player chosen in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant. It's a label, half joke and half brutal reality for the player no one expects to succeed. In the 2004 NHL entry draft, the hockey world found its own Mr. Irrelevant 33 spots away from being the absolute last man taken. His name was Pekka Rinne. The draft that year had 291 total picks. Pekka Rinne's name was finally called at 258th overall, deep in the 8th round. Rinne, born in 1982 in Kempula, Finland, was already ancient by NHL draft standards. He wasn't a fresh-faced 18-year-old prodigy. He was 21. He had been eligible for the draft in 2001, 2002, and 2003. For 3 consecutive years, every single one of the 30 NHL teams had looked at his name, analyzed his potential, and decided, no thanks. He was passed over, forgotten, and written off. In the eyes of the scouting world, he was a non-entity. He was too old to be a prospect, too raw to be a project, and worst of all, he was buried on his own team's bench in Finland. On draft day in June 2004, he wasn't sitting by the phone. He wasn't nervously watching the broadcast with his family. He was at a traditional Finnish midsummer party with his friends, completely disconnected from the event. He'd already been overlooked so many times that he wasn't even following it. The call finally came, shattering the party's atmosphere. It was his agent telling him the impossible had happened. The Nashville Predators had just used an 8th-round pick on him. Rinne was, in his own words, completely shocked. This was the profile of a ghost pick, a player with no buzz, no hype, and no future. But why? Why was this 6'5" athlete completely invisible to the entire league? The answer lay in his past, in a decision he made as a teenager that almost ended his career before it ever began. Years earlier, around age 15, Rinne hit a massive awkward growth spurt. He shot up in height, but his coordination didn't follow. He was clumsy, unbalanced, and lost on the ice. He felt like a giraffe on skates. His words for how awkward that growth spurt made him feel, and he almost quit for a summer. The game that had become natural became a frustrating daily struggle. He got so demoralized, so fed up with his own body, that he went to his father and said he was done. He quit. He walked away from the rink and skipped an entire summer of hockey. But the itch came back. The time away didn't kill his love for the game, it clarified it. He returned the next season, not with new talent, but with a new relentless drive. He had learned a lesson that would define him. Resilience, not just raw talent, would have to be his path forward. That resilience, however, didn't make him a star. When he turned pro in Finland, he was stuck. He played for Oulun Kärpät, his hometown club, but he wasn't the starter. He was the backup to Niklas Backstrom, another goalie who was a hot prospect, a player who would go on to have his own star career with the Minnesota Wild. This is why Rinne was a ghost to the scouts. When they came to watch Kärpät play, they saw Backstrom in the net. They saw Rinne sitting on the bench, opening the door. But he did exist to one man. Pekka Rinne's entire career, the Vezina, the statue, all of it, exists because a single scout refused to ignore what everyone else had missed. Jana Kekalainen, Nashville's European scout, was watching Kärpät, but his eyes kept drifting to the backup. He was forced to judge Rinne almost entirely based on pregame warm-ups and practices. In those brief stolen moments, while other scouts focused on the game, Kekalainen saw something no one else did. He saw the 6'5" frame, but he also saw the extraordinary, almost unnatural reflexes. He saw the giraffe on skates had grown into his body, becoming a massive athlete who moved with shocking speed and poise. He saw a hidden gem. Kekalainen went back to Nashville's front office and pounded the table. He was putting his reputation on the line for a 21-year-old overaged backup who had been passed over 3 times. But he was convincing. He persuaded them to use a late-round flyer, a pick so late it barely mattered, on the kid no one else wanted. Then assistant general manager Paul Fenton later admitted what a profound evaluation it was, saying, "It was quite apparent that he would be our goaltender of the future." The rest of the league saw an irrelevant, forgettable name at the bottom of the draft list. But that one scout's belief had just turned an 8th-round gamble into a franchise cornerstone. The longest shot imaginable was now in the system, but the real work, the long, slow grind from Mr. Irrelevant to NHL ready, was just about to begin. That single scout's belief had given him a number, but it didn't give him a spot in the NHL. His journey was just beginning, and it wouldn't start in the bright lights of the big leagues. It would start in the grueling, unglamorous world of the minor leagues. In 2005, Pekka Rinne packed his bags and moved to North America. He was assigned to the Nashville Predators' AHL affiliate, the Milwaukee Admirals. For a young player from Finland, this was a new world. The language was different, the culture was different, and the hockey was completely different. The American Hockey League is a tough, punishing league. It's a place filled with veterans trying to hang on and young, hungry prospects trying to claw their way up. It's a league of long bus rides and small arenas, a world away from the chartered jets and sold-out arenas of the NHL. More importantly, the game itself was different. The rinks in North America are smaller than in Europe. This means the game is faster, the angles are tighter, players shoot the puck quickly, and the play is more physical. For a tall, acrobatic goalie like Rinne, it was a massive adjustment. He had to relearn his position, adapting his style to a game that came at him with more speed and less space than he had ever seen. This was the start of the slow burn. The Predators didn't rush him. They sent him to Milwaukee to learn, to adapt, and to prove that he was more than just a warm-up legend. He arrived as an unknown 8th-round pick. He started as a backup, once again fighting for his job. But just as he did as a teenager, his relentless drive took over. He quickly earned the starting job, and in his very first season, he did something shocking. As a rookie in the 2005-06 season, Rinne didn't just survive. He dominated. He put the Admirals on his back and carried them game after game all the way to the Calder Cup final, the AHL's championship series. It was a stunning performance. The ghost pick was suddenly the best goalie in the league. But even that wasn't enough. One great AHL season didn't punch his ticket to the NHL. The Predators' front office, while impressed, wanted to see more. They wanted to be absolutely sure. So Rinne stayed in Milwaukee. He spent a second full season with the Admirals and then a third, 3 full years. While other higher-drafted goalies were getting their chances in the NHL, Pekka Rinne was still paying his dues. He became a 2-time AHL All-Star. He was a known force in the minors, a player who was clearly too good for the league he was in. But the call-up to the show, the one he was working for, still didn't come. He was stuck in his apprenticeship. Finally, after 3 long years of grinding, learning, and dominating, the door opened. Rinne, now 26 years old, was called up to the NHL for good. But Pekka Rinne was just getting started. The kid who was passed over 3 times, the giraffe on skates who almost quit, the 8th-round Mr. Irrelevant who spent 3 years in the minors, he had finally arrived. And he didn't just scrape by, he exploded onto the scene. He quickly seized the starting job in Nashville, proving he wasn't just an AHL All-Star, he was an elite NHL goaltender. By 2013, he was one of the best in the world, the undisputed backbone of the Predators. He had made it. The climb was over. And then, in an instant, it all came crashing down. By 2013, Pekka Rinne was no longer a secret. He was one of the NHL's elites. He was a Vezina Trophy finalist, a player known for his incredible 6'5" size and his shocking acrobatic flexibility. He had proven everyone wrong. His long-term, high-value contract proved he was the cornerstone of the Predators. Then came May 2013. At the end of the season, Rinne underwent what was supposed to be a routine arthroscopic hip surgery. It was a minor tune-up, a common procedure for a high-performance athlete to clean out the joints. He was expected to recover, rehab, and be 100% ready for the next season. 5 months later, the nightmare began. In October, after the new season had just started, Rinne began to feel sick. He developed a severe fever. Something was terribly wrong. Doctors ran tests, and what they found was catastrophic. He had a severe E. coli infection. But it wasn't just in his system. It was deep inside the repaired hip joint. This wasn't a minor setback. It was a life-altering, career-ending threat. The aggressive bacteria were eroding the hip socket. The very joint that allowed him to make his explosive split-second saves was being eaten away. Rinne himself called the situation very dangerous. He was rushed into emergency surgery. Doctors had to go back into the hip, open it up, and desperately try to clean out the aggressive infection before it did permanent, irreversible damage. But the fight was just beginning. For 4 agonizing weeks after the surgery, Rinne was sidelined. He had to have an IV inserted into his arm, feeding him a constant, powerful stream of antibiotics just to fight off the bacteria that were trying to destroy his joint. The hockey world watched and waited. Speculation was grim. He missed 51 games, almost the entire 2013-14 season. For a goalie whose entire style was built on flexibility and explosive power, a deteriorating hip was a death sentence. Many feared he would never play again. And even if he did, there was no way he could return as the same elite athletic goalie. He was 31 years old, recovering from a devastating joint-altering infection. The kid who was once irrelevant, the man who had climbed the mountain and reached the top, was now at the very bottom. His hard-earned career looked like it was over. He was facing a second climb, this one even more impossible than the first. Rinne's comeback wasn't just about healing. It was about proving all over again that he belonged. He returned to the ice for the 2014-15 season, but the hockey world was watching with doubt. Could he still be the same goalie? Could he still make those explosive athletic saves after his hip was nearly destroyed? He answered them with one of the best seasons of his career. He didn't just play, he was dominant. He posted MVP caliber numbers, single-handedly winning games for Nashville. He proved that he had not only recovered, but that he was still one of the best in the world. The climb back was about more than just his health. It was about reaching the one peak that had always eluded him, the Vezina Trophy, the award for the league's best goaltender. This was a core part of his story. It was a story of constant, frustrating denial. Even before his injury, he had been at the very top, only to be told, not yet. In 2011, he was a finalist for both the Vezina and the Hart Trophy as league MVP, but he lost to Tim Thomas. The very next year, in 2012, he was a finalist again. This time, he lost to Henrik Lundqvist. He was always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Now, after his incredible comeback from the infection, he was a finalist for a third time. The 2014-15 season was his redemption story. It was the perfect narrative. The man who beat a career-ending infection returns to finally claim his crown. But the voters disagreed. For the third time, he was snubbed, losing the award to Carey Price. He was 32 years old. He had been a finalist 3 times. He had been denied before his injury, and he was denied after it. It seemed destined that his name would never be on that trophy. The Mr. Irrelevant pick was just not meant to be the best. For many players, this would be the final chapter. The long climb, the terrible injury, the failed comeback, it would be the end. But Pekka Rinne just kept working. The 2015-16 season passed. Then, in 2016-17, he carried his team on a miracle run to the Stanley Cup Final. And then came the 2017-18 season. At 35 years old, an age when most goalies are in sharp, undeniable decline, Pekka Rinne delivered the single greatest season of his life. It was a masterpiece of resilience. He wasn't just good, he was a brick wall. He was the unquestioned leader and backbone of the Predators. Night after night, he was the best player on the ice. He went 42-13-4, posted 8 shutouts, and had a stunning .927 save percentage. He wasn't just putting up stats, he was winning. From February 19th to March 19th, the Predators went on a franchise record 11-game winning streak, and Rinne was the anchor for nearly every single victory. He was so good that he dragged the entire franchise to new heights, leading the Nashville Predators to their first ever President's Trophy for the best regular season record in the entire NHL. He was 35 years old, and he was, without any doubt, the best. This time, he was undeniable. That spring, the NHL hockey world finally gave him his due. The long, impossible climb was over. The kid who was passed over 3 times, the 8th-round pick, the minor league grinder, the man who came back from a hip-eating infection, was finally called to the stage. Pekka Rinne was handed the Vezina Trophy. He stood on stage, emotional, holding the award that had eluded him for a decade. He thanked his childhood idols, legends like Brodeur, Roy, and Hasek, and called the award humbling beyond words. The journey was complete. The once irrelevant backup from Kempele, the 258th pick who wasn't even watching the draft, was now on the same trophy as the very legends whose posters used to hang on his wall. Rinne retired as a franchise icon, one of the most beloved players in Nashville history. He was the very first player in the team's history to have his number, 35, retired and hung from the rafters. A bronze statue of him now stands outside the arena, a permanent monument to the man who built the franchise. He holds the all-time record for the most wins by any Finnish-born goalie in the history of the NHL. He even did the impossible for a goalie. On January 9th, 2020, he scored a goal, joining a tiny club of only 12 goalies in NHL history to do so. His journey from midsummer anonymity in Finland to a Vezina in Nashville rewrote what it means to be a late-round pick. He wasn't Mr. Irrelevant, he was Mr. Inevitable. He was the giraffe on skates who almost quit. An 8th-round afterthought who battled rejection, infection, and came back stronger. He proved resilience will always beat raw talent. Drop your thoughts down below. Who's your favorite underdog story? Every grinder gets one big moment, and if you liked this one, hit subscribe. And if you really want to back the boys, hit join and support the channel. It keeps the lights on, the mics hot, and the stories rolling. We'll save you a stall in the locker room. Just try not to wheel in Crocs, you absolute beaut.